Today, Rolex is one of the most recognizable luxury brands on Earth. A Rolex is not just a watch. For millions of people, it is a symbol of success, discipline, power, and achievement. But the strange part is this: Rolex was not created by a man who came from luxury. It was created by an orphan from Germany who lost his parents young, was forced to grow up fast, and built his future from discipline, language, trade, and one powerful belief. A wristwatch could become more than jewelry. It could become the future. And Hans Wilsdorf did not build Rolex by asking people to trust him. He built Rolex by proving, again and again, that they should. This is the story of how Hans Wilsdorf turned trust into one of the most powerful luxury brands in history. Hans Wilsdorf was born in Germany in 1881. His family was comfortable, but his childhood changed quickly. Before he was even a teenager, both of his parents had passed away. After that, Hans and his siblings were placed under the care of their uncles, who sent them to boarding school. For a young boy, it was painful. He had lost his family, his home, and the normal life he knew. But that difficult childhood gave him something that would later define his entire career: self-reliance. Hans later believed that being forced to look after himself early in life helped shape the discipline behind his success. At school, he became a serious student. He was strong in mathematics. He learned English and French, and those languages would later become one of his biggest advantages, because Hans was not thinking locally. He was thinking internationally before he even had a company. As a young man, Hans first worked in the pearl trade. There, he learned how valuable goods moved through international markets. Pearls were bought, sorted, graded, packaged, and sold to jewelers. And Hans noticed something important. The business was not only about the product, it was about trust, presentation, distribution, and reputation. Then, his career moved closer to the world that would change his life forever: watches. Around 1900, Hans went to Switzerland, one of the most important watchmaking centers in the world. He worked for a watch exporter and learned how timepieces were made, sold, tested, and shipped across borders. He saw the precision of Swiss movements. He saw how much detail went into a serious watch, and he saw a business opportunity that almost everyone else was ignoring. At the time, the serious watch was the pocket watch. Men carried them in their pockets. They were larger, traditional, and respected. Wristwatches were different. Many people saw them as fragile. Some saw them as feminine. And worst of all, they were not trusted for serious precision. They were smaller, harder to protect, and easier to damage. To most people, a wristwatch was not the future. It was a weak version of a real watch. But Hans Wilsdorf saw the opposite. He believed pocket watches would eventually disappear and wristwatches would become normal for everyone. That belief was risky, because he was betting on a product the market did not fully respect. In 1905, at only 24 years old, Hans founded a company in London with Alfred Davis. The company was called Wilsdorf and Davis. At first, they imported high-quality Swiss movements and placed them into watch cases. But Hans was not interested in being just another watch distributor. He wanted to build a brand, and he understood something most businesses forget. A product can be good, but without a strong name, it is hard to remember. So he searched for a name that was short, simple, elegant, and easy to pronounce in any language. It also had to fit perfectly on the dial of a watch. In 1908, he registered the name Rolex. 5 letters, simple, balanced, memorable. And from that moment, the real brand began. But Hans still had a major problem. People did not fully trust wristwatches, so he did what smart entrepreneurs do. He did not just advertise, he collected proof. In 1910, a Rolex wristwatch received a Swiss certificate of chronometric precision. That mattered, because precision was everything in watchmaking. Then in 1914, Rolex received a Class A precision certificate from Kew Observatory in Great Britain. This was a major achievement, because that kind of recognition had usually been connected with highly serious timekeeping instruments. Now, Rolex could say something powerful. The wristwatch was not just fashionable, it could be precise. But Hans was not finished, because accuracy was only one part of trust. A watch also had to survive real life: dust, water, sweat, heat, cold, pressure. One small leak inside the case could destroy the movement. So Hans started chasing a bigger dream, a wristwatch that was not only accurate but sealed from the outside world. In 1926, Rolex introduced the Oyster. It was waterproof, it was dustproof, and it was designed to protect the delicate movement inside the watch. For Rolex, this was a turning point. But Hans understood that a technical claim was not enough. If he simply told people, "This watch is waterproof," many would ignore it, so he needed a demonstration, a public test, a story the world could not forget. That opportunity came in 1927. A British swimmer named Mercedes Gleitze attempted to swim across the English Channel. The water was freezing, the challenge was brutal, and the public was watching. Hans saw the perfect moment. He asked her to wear a Rolex Oyster during the swim. After more than 10 hours in cold water, the watch was still working. That was the moment Rolex changed forever, because Hans did not just create a waterproof watch, he turned the English Channel into a marketing stage. Soon after, Rolex placed a major advertisement in the Daily Mail. The message was clear. This was not a promise. This was proof. And that became the Rolex formula. Do not just tell people the product is reliable. Show it surviving the real world. Rolex watches would later appear with explorers, pilots, swimmers, divers, drivers, and people pushing human limits. The world itself became a testing ground. Mountains, oceans, racing tracks, extreme weather, record-breaking journeys. Rolex was building a new meaning around the watch. It was no longer just something you wore to tell time. It was something worn by people who tested themselves. And that is how reliability slowly became status. But Rolex's success was not only marketing, the product kept improving. In 1931, Rolex patented a self-winding mechanism with the perpetual rotor. This helped solve another problem, the need to manually wind the watch again and again. Then came the Datejust in 1945, adding the date in a window on the dial. Then the Submariner in 1953, designed for underwater exploration. Then the Day Date in 1956, showing both the date and the day of the week written in full. Each model strengthened the same idea. A Rolex had to be useful, it had to be precise, it had to be durable, and it had to feel important. That is why Rolex became different from many luxury brands. It did not begin with status, it began with performance. The status came later, after decades of proof. Hans Wilsdorf also made one of the most important decisions in the history of the company. Rolex became owned by the Hans Wilsdorf Foundation, created in 1945. That structure helped the company stay independent. Rolex did not need to behave like a public company chasing short-term pressure. It could protect its reputation, it could control quality, it could think long-term. And that long-term thinking became one of the hidden reasons behind the power of the brand. Rolex did not flood the market. It protected desire. It did not change its identity every year. It refined it. It did not sell only watches. It sold trust, precision, achievement, and time earned through effort. Hans Wilsdorf died in 1960, but the brand he built continued growing around the same idea he had believed in from the beginning. A wristwatch could be elegant and reliable. It could be beautiful and technical. It could be small but powerful. And today, more than a century after Hans founded his company in London, Rolex remains one of the most desired names in the world. Not because it is just expensive, but because for decades, Rolex attached its name to proof. A watch surviving water, a watch flying over mountains, a watch worn by record breakers, a watch built for pressure. That is the real lesson behind Rolex. Hans Wilsdorf did not build one of the world's greatest luxury brands by chasing attention. He built it by earning belief, one test at a time, one innovation at a time, one story at a time. And over the years, that belief became something even more powerful than marketing. It became trust, and trust became luxury.